Samantha's parents were going on a date, so she would have to stay home alone for a couple of hours. She was in the living room watching some TV, and she heard banging upstairs. She paused her movie and went to see what it was. She looked in all of the rooms, but there was nobody in the house. She went back downstairs, and the TV was turned off. She didn't remember turning off the TV. The lights all went out, and it freaked her out. She tries to turn on the lamp, but it won't turn on. She hears footsteps upstairs. She gets out her phone and dials 911. She tells them that she thinks someone is in her house. She hears footsteps upstairs. They ask for her address and she tells them. They tell her to stay calm and get out of the house. She hangs up the phone, but she doesn't listen. She walks up the stairs quietly. She wants to see if anyone is really in her house. Right when she makes it up the stairs, she sees a dark figure at the end of the hall holding a knife. She screams and runs down the stairs, and the dark figure is chasing after her. She runs out the door and the police arrive right when she does. They get out of the cars, they run in the house looking for the man. A minute later they come back out, but they don't have the person. They tell her that there is nobody in there. They checked the back to see if the man got away, but they didn't see the man. They checked everywhere and he was nowhere to be seen. Samantha tells them that he was right behind her. How could he not be there? Then they tell her she was probably seeing things. The police leave the house and Samantha goes back inside. One day she was searching about her house and it was showing an article from a long time ago that a man died in this house. Then she thinks that she saw his ghost. When I was 19, my parents and brother had gone away for the weekend and I stayed behind. I had had a pretty rough night and was very drunk. I pulled a Britney Spears move and cut off all my long hair, drunkenly thinking to reinvent myself, because I was moving away for university the following week. When I finished rinsing the fresh cut hair off of my neck in the shower, I left the bathroom to find a note in the hallway that said, "I was going to leave you a note, but I see that you are here." Naturally, I was walking around my house naked as I thought I was alone, but when I opened the door to my room there was a guy with his hair in his face standing in the middle of the room grinning at me. I freaked out and screamed bloody murder, as one tends to do when they're a naked 19-year-old girl encountering an unexpected stranger in their empty house at 2:30 a.m. Until I recognized him. It was this boy I had dated in my first year of high school 3 years previously for 2 weeks until he ran away from home. Turns out he had heard I was moving away and just wanted to talk. He didn't hurt me or threaten me in any way, other than breaking into my house in the middle of the night, handed me some clothes from my bed, and we chatted until he eventually left. I found out 2 years later that he's been institutionalized with schizophrenia. Years ago my parents had their garage converted into an extra large bedroom. It's full of junk now, and this was where we all played games. I was about 10 and it was only the second or third time I had been left alone in the house while my siblings were all away for one reason or another. Naturally, I was up all night playing on our PS2 in there, having a blast. I don't know how late, but pretty late into it, I suddenly started hearing someone tapping on the window. They really went all out with the extra bedroom and actually replaced the garage door with a wall, window, and traditional front door you'd find on any house, complete with bolt and doorknob locks. Well, I didn't realize it was a sound not produced by my game for a full minute or so, and the sound, like someone drumming their fingers 1, 2, 3, 4 1, 2, 3, 4 really quickly, kept going without stopping. I finally really noticed it when the doorknob rattled and the sound moved to the door, which made it louder. I freaked right the hell out and snuck to the door to double check the locks. They were both unlocked, but the door tended to jam and act like it was locked unless you put a lot of effort into it. I locked both locks, loudly, so the person would know they definitely couldn't get in, but I just heard a gruff older man laugh and the sound got louder. Then he moved back to the window and called in, "Let me in, love, I'm cold and hungry. Don't you want to be nice to your neighbor?" I turned out the light, ran to my room, and hid in the pitch dark under my blanket until my parents got home a few hours later from their anniversary date. I never told them because I was young enough to care more about getting in trouble because I stayed up past my bedtime. I live in a slightly rural spot. One night, after about midnight, I hear banging on my door. I thought it was my boyfriend attempting a booty call, as he is apt to do. When I got to the door I could see through the small glass window, but instead of my boyfriend I saw the side of an unfamiliar bearded face. He didn't see me and I backed away from the door. My house was in a cellular, dead zone, so I knew my cell was useless. I grabbed the landline next to my bed to call 911, but the line was dead. It was just like a horror movie, where the killer cuts the phone line. Meanwhile the guy was still pounding away and slurring, "Let me in." I grabbed the biggest chef knife I own, which is pretty big, and locked myself in the bathroom. I stood on the edge of the tub, behind the shower curtain, figuring I might have a chance if I jumped on him from above and stabbed him between the neck and shoulder when he tried to bust down the door. I was terrified, but also pleased with my plan, and waited. He started working his way around the outside of the house. I could hear him sliding his hands along the siding and banging his fist against the walls. For a split second I reveled in my surprisingly badass plan, then I realized that sabotage phone hadn't been charged in days. Maybe one of the other handsets still worked. I have never felt more fear than the moment I climbed down from my hiding spot, unlocked the bathroom door, and went in search of a second handset, all while a madman was moving around the outside of my house violently trying to unlock every door and window. I found a phone, and it worked. I dialed 911, but the closest officer was over 15 minutes away. I was told to stay on the line, but locked myself in the bathroom again. That was the longest 15 minutes of my life. When police arrived, they had me identify a cuffed scruffy drunk off his ass dirty hippie kid. Apparently there had been a party down the road. He got disoriented and thought my house was his friend's house. He was trying to get back inside the party for 20 minutes of pure terror. A man named Joseph Blackwell came to city on a business trip. He stayed at the large house some friends owned on the outskirts of the city. That night they had a pleasant evening chatting and reminiscing about the past. But when Blackwell went to bed, he began to toss and turn and was unable to sleep. At one point during the night, he heard a car pull into the driveway. He went to the window to see who might be arriving at such a late hour. In the moonlight, he saw a black hearse full of people. The driver looked up at him. When Blackwell saw his strange face, he shuddered. The driver called to him, "There's room for one more." He then waited a minute or two before driving off. In the morning, Blackwell told his friends what had happened. "You were dreaming," they said. "That must have been it," he replied, "but it didn't seem like a dream." After breakfast he left for town and spent the day in the offices of one of the new high-rise buildings in the city. Late in the afternoon, he was ready to go back to the house and was waiting for the elevator to take him down to the ground floor. But when it stopped at his floor, it was very full. One of the people inside looked at him and said, "There's room for one more." It was the driver of the hearse. "No, thank you," Blackwell said. "I'll wait for the next one." The doors closed and the elevator began to descend. Moments later, there was a terrible crash and shouts and screams could be heard. The elevator had collapsed. All the people inside were killed.